Russell Brand interviews Johnathan Roumie, and he opens up revealing a shocking detail about the first time he felt connected to playing the character of Jesus. Okay, this completely blew my mind. If you guys don't know who Johnathan Roumie is, he plays Jesus on The Chosen, and he is also an actor. He's been in things like Jesus Revolution, and he's actually worked as a stand-in for Russell Brand. So it's kind of wild to see this conversation come full circle. And so here, he reveals something very interesting from his childhood that I didn't know about.
Prayer life have been a direct result of spending more time with Jesus as a character in a TV show whom I'm playing. You know, I remember seeing Jesus of Nazareth with Robert Powell as like an 11-year-old kid and being so impacted by the path he took to his crucifixion that after the show was over, I went outside in my own backyard, built the life-size cross, and reenacted the Passion of the Christ myself.
I don't know who does that as an 11-year-old.
That's weird. You know, it's less concerning than like your child is like out in the back killing frogs. You know what I'm saying? But it's like one of those like, wow, this kid is chosen.
If that's not a foreshadowing,
seriously,
I don't know what is.
11-year-old kid, like who does that? It's hard not to kind of look at this as some sort of manifest destiny, that God has a plan in which I can now bring concepts of the faith and the necessity and the importance of having a relationship with Christ and having the spirituality to an audience that I think on a global scale desperately needs something to anchor themselves into. Years ago, when I was working with you, I was dead broke, man. That job for me as a stand-in was one of the lifelines that kept me from completely just drowning in financial misery. I essentially had to let go of the reins of the control of my life, of trying to think that I was responsible for everything, that I could do it all, that I knew better than God knew about what my life should look like, about what my career should look like. And the minute I released it and truly and honestly and totally and wholly gave it away to Him, everything changed. It took a little bit of time. It was about 3 months after that before I got cast in The Chosen. But I knew in that moment that this answered prayer was the beginning of the next chapter of my life. And my life has never been the same since.
First of all, I didn't know that Johnathan Roumie was a stand-in for Russell Brand.
That's insane.
On the TV show called Ballers with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as the star. Yeah, there's that picture of them. When he got there, he didn't realize he had to memorize all the lines. So he had to do all the lines. And then he said he just started showing up and doing more and more of the accent. And so by the interview opens with him doing Russell's accent.
Really?
Yeah. What I loved about that clip is specifically Johnathan talking about surrendering his career and coming to the end of himself. And I think oftentimes there's a stark contrast between what we would call a God dream for our career, for our dreams, for our ambitions, for our vision of ourselves, a God dream, versus actually trying to figure out what God's dream is for your life and submitting your life to God's dream. And God's dream is always going to be better than a God dream. Because a God dream, you're trying to get God in on the vision you mustered in. God, I got this idea. Would you be in on this with me? It's such a big idea. I need your blessing on it. Versus God's dream is saying, it's not about what I want, and it's not about what I envision for myself. It's what do you have for me, and how could I get in on what you're doing and what you want to do through me? And ultimately, for every follower of Jesus, I would say God's dream for your life, God's purpose for your life is for you to know Him, make Him known, and to continue walking with Him and being more and more conformed into who He's called you to be more and more like Jesus. So I think the tension of I want God in on my thing is so unhealthy for most Christians. So you just got to be willing to come to the end of yourself and just let that thing die so that ultimately God could raise it up and make it actually align with what He had planned for you. And this is very difficult for creative people. This is very difficult for artists, for entrepreneurs, YouTubers. It's like we want to do what we think, the vision we think we got. And a lot of times the vision we get aren't from God. They're from our own flesh. They're from our own presuppositions. They're from our own wisdom and what we think is right. And I think the more I've been able to come to a place of allowing my dreams to die so that God can raise them, the better I've been. And for me, this was very practical, where my primary income from 2015 to 2020 was just trying to be a full-time artist. That came at the expense of being gone from my family. That came at the expense of a really unhealthy schedule on my body. That came at the expense of a lot of negative things in the music industry. And the more I submitted those things and surrendered, God, whatever you want, I'm down to do whatever you want. I don't have to make music. Whatever you want me to do. The more God opened other doors and other things started opening up, like this YouTube channel. And so I would really take to heart this idea of like, are you trying to just, those of you guys that are like, hey man, I want to do something with my life. I got this drive. I got this push. Are you really getting after what you believe God has called you to do? Or are you actually just trying to get God in on what you think God should have you do in this life? And you don't, they say, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Yep.
Celeste actually simplified it really well. She said, a God dream is your leading. God's dream is God's leading.
Boom.
And that comes on the other side of you being willing to surrender the thing you think you were supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And sometimes God does redirect that. Sometimes he doesn't. Right? Do you think you could be doing something that is godly, like working in ministry, but it still isn't God's dream? Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are in ministry that don't got no business being in ministry, Jeremiah.
Going back to nepotism in ministry.
Nepotism in ministry. So
It's
yeah.
like, are you a pastor just because your dad's a pastor?
Right.
That's not how calling works.
Right. That's not how calling works. That's good. You don't need to have a moment where God puts something in your life. That's not the point. The point is, are you being faithful to the things that are in front of you? Not everybody has this like fork in the road moment where like I could keep, like for me, like I could go and quit my job and do business for myself, or I could keep working at the church. What am I going to do? Like a very fork in the road moment. You don't have to have that moment. Like a lot of times it's just being faithful to what's in front of you and trying to optimize what you can do in the season that you're in, Anyway, I would love to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about this? Have you found yourself in times where you're just trying to get God conformed into your likeness, or are you genuinely after conforming to God's likeness for your life and what he has for you? I think the latter is the way to go, and it's refreshing to hear Johnathan Roumie use the same kind of language that I've used and I've experienced in terms of where I'm at now. After the incredible success of our Bless God prayer journal, many of you guys began to ask for something that had a planner. And so we combined our Bless God prayer journal with a brand new leadership planner that jam-packs the same things from our prayer journal with a planner, goal setting, leadership meeting, and notes. With the next pages, you can see different sections right along here of this leadership planner where you can start out with actionable goals, 12 months of calendar, our original prayer journal prompts, our leadership journal with the proven problem solution framework, and of course, just free write notes. This leadership planner is based off of Matthew 25:14-30, which of course is the parable of the talents. The vision of the planner is to help you make the most of your time, talent, and treasure. Head over to blessgod.shop and get yours today. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.